you're looking at it, first of all, it really doesn't make any sense. When you're trying to read it and you're trying to decipher it, it's going to take too much of me to work at it, so I'm going to forget about it. And also, if you're not, if you're not capitalizing it, but also if you're using a real long hashtag that nobody else is searching, what's it going to do for you? If this is marketing. Now, having fun on social media, some people will put that, Sunday fun day or something like that, or a long, I'm trying to think of, I'm not really into these long hashtags, so I can't even think of any off the top of my head, but I see them all the time out there. More on the personal side when they're just having fun, but I still, I don't ever click on them. I don't go search them. So somebody's just using that as part of their conversation, So again, that's just my thought, my recommendation. You do what you want to do with that. But, again, really focus on what you want to accomplish with your tweet when you're putting those hashtags in. And it also goes along with Instagram. Instagram it's extremely hashtag friendly for sure.
Oh, absolutely so.
It is, you can get by with using a lot more hashtags on Instagram. In fact, some people don't even put any text in their message with their image or their video. They just put a bunch of hashtags. And I would say beware of that. You still want to have a brief message.
Yeah, Instagram may accept it and they're not going to block you for it, but you still have to get a message across. And too many hashtags, the mind doesn't comprehend what it's putting out there because our whole life we've been taught to read a certain way. Mm-hmm. So whether it's English, Spanish, German, whatever the language is, the hashtag works, but too many of them may destroy the content and the context of what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Actually, Social Bakers did a Instagram study a few years ago, and what they found is that posts that used hashtags had an average engagement rate of 5.31%, while posts that did not use a hashtag on Instagram averaged an engagement rate of only 2.95%. So that
let me get this. Okay. So you're talking about if I use a hashtag, I'm going to get almost double the engagement that I would if I did not use a hashtag.
And this is on Instagram. Correct, because when you use these hashtags, it actually brings up similar photos or videos because you're captioning your images on Instagram when you're using these hashtags. So they group these images together. So you're going to get more people viewing. And that's what people search for when they get on Instagram. They search for hashtags for particular topics that they want to know more about. So yes, that's going to double your engagement for sure. However, this I found interesting. While the best campaigns made use of hashtags, engagement rates dropped by more than 50% if there were more than 10 hashtags per post. Because I know that when I first was learning Instagram, they said, oh, just freely use hashtags. But I found out, that really interesting that all in all, 7 hashtags generate the most engagement. That is what is found by a lot of the experts. And that's kind of just, they have found that when you start using more than 8, then people perceive that as spam. So again, this is kind of evolving. Maybe in the beginning, you were able to, just like on Twitter, could use numerous. But now, to really not looked upon as just spamming, you can actually get by getting that engagement rate up by using, I would say, between 3 and 7 hashtags on Instagram. That will really help you.
Interesting. Very good on that.
And I know you don't Instagram, so.
No, I do not Instagram. I do tweet every now and then, though. I am more active on Twitter. In fact, I've met some amazing people on Twitter, but that's for a different time on that. But it all works through hashtags and your subject matter on Twitter. on putting that together. So that to me is the cool part.
Well, and this all gets back to Facebook, because there are a number of people that just do not like hashtags being used on Facebook. Back in 2013 is when Facebook basically started, having hashtags be accepted on Facebook. I know we did some webinars on hashtags and did some blogging and some other articles and such in there. But why marketers want to be using hashtags on Facebook, it's really quite simple. They want to integrate it with Instagram, because who owns Instagram?
Facebook?
Yep. So they work together. Instagram is the one third party that Facebook lets play on their playground. They don't.
Why would they stop them if they own them?
I mean, they really don't like to have those third parties. They're not, they spank them. They don't like them, but they do love Instagram, and you can have these two sites integrate together. So what happens is, if you have an image, if it gets shared on either network, Facebook or Instagram, say on Facebook, then it will get picked up on Instagram. So maybe you have a hashtag shared on Instagram, it'll get shared and picked up on Facebook. So that's kind of why now marketers are really seriously putting in their strategies, hashtags on their Facebook postings, because now you're actually doubling your reach with that one hashtag. Pretty cool?
Well, that answers a big question, for me. And when we're coaching with people on how do I get my reach? How do I get in front of more people? How do I be more visible? All of these type of things. Then obviously the hashtag would work, and it's priced right for me. It's free. Well, you just got to learn it.
Well, yeah, exactly. You have to experiment with the hashtags, especially on Facebook, to see what's working and what is not working. And they are more likely to be used by companies or brands, organizations, than they are by the individuals, as far as for the purposes that we're talking about, getting that reach. Again, on the personal side, they're used more as just part of the conversation to have some fun with the long hashtags and such. But even though they do help with engagement on Facebook, they're not used anywhere near as often as they are on Instagram and Twitter. So we have to remember that and be, understand the usage on Facebook. In fact, overusing hashtags can hurt you across all the platforms. As we just shared with you, our audience, about on Instagram, if you use more than 10, you're actually going to decrease by 50% your engagement. So that's going to hurt you. So you have to understand that. And with Facebook, they're really saying 1 to 2 hashtags is going to get you be more accepted on Facebook and get you a better reach than if you use multiple. And, I really have been one that I have, when I'm first learning, I used more than I do now. But there are some times that I have a strategy in mind that I have used more than 3. Normally I use anywhere from 2 to 3 on a post, but I monitor those. I look to see what's happening on each one of those posts with the analytics on Facebook, so that I can tell if it's gaining or an engagement or a reach, or if it has diminished the reach or engagement. So you really have to stay on top of it so that you are, again, using it for the purpose that you want to be using it for.
Makes sense to me.
In fact, like I said, it has changed a lot since 2013, when Facebook first started allowing the hashtags on their postings. People did get crazy with them. So again, people have learned, especially marketers, and how best to use them. But I also wanted to provide another tip on Facebook, whereas on Twitter, as I mentioned, you can use the hashtag within the stream of conversation. But on Facebook, you really want to use the hashtag at the end of the message. You don't want to have it be part of the message, because it doesn't allow the person to really read it as in the context that they would prefer to read it. So if you use the hashtag after the message at the end, again, it's going to resonate more with an individual reading your message, and chances are they'll read your full text message there.
Now that makes sense, because if I'm reading through just an average post on Facebook, 20, 30, 40, 50 words on along those lines, if I got 3 hashtags in there, that kind of breaks up my reading. So what you're saying is write my 20, 30, 40, 50 words, and then at the bottom do my hashtag below the text.
Yeah, especially on Facebook, and the reason being, it has through a lot of the experts that are out there that do these testings and do surveys and such and studies. They have found that especially on Facebook, if you use if you don't use strategic hashtags or that pertain to the topic that you're talking about, or if you use more than 2, it can actually suppress your reach and engagement, and then that takes away exactly what you want to have done. You're using the hashtag to be seen by more people, again, to gain a better reach and be seen in more threads of conversation and specific topics. So, use them wisely, and that's all I can really say. Experiment with them. See what works for you, what doesn't. As I said, go to that one tool that I talked about called RiteTag, RITETAG.com, and put in hashtags and see if they are being used, or maybe they're not being used enough, or maybe they're being used too much. But this will help you get some statistics on hashtags so you can make sure that you're strategically using them in the manner that you want to be using them.
Makes total sense to me. So I think I better take you up on that advice on that.
Now, there are some do's and don'ts, and want to definitely talk about that. So we shared a few of some do's and don'ts that you don't want to do. You don't want to be using those for marketing purposes. Those are real long hashtags, You want to keep it short and sweet, and you really want to be using one hashtag consistently. Really have a hashtag that you want to use consistently in all your postings. So that would be your
more or less branded hashtag, so to speak.
A branded one. And it doesn't have to be the name of your company.
No, but whatever the hashtag is, and if it's consistent through all of your posts, eventually people will use that to recognize, who you are and understand, well, that's Cheri that's posting that, or that's Richard that's posting it, So, putting that together, but like you said earlier, use it tactically.
Yes,
I
like that.
Just don't throw it out there. Just don't be haphazard with it. It's going to end up being a branded item to you eventually if you use it long enough and often enough on social media. So you're going to get it, whether it's Facebook or whether it's Twitter or whatever, doesn't really matter, Instagram, whatever. It will become your moniker sooner or later.
Right. I mean, the more, this is a doobie. I mean, the more specific that you get with your hashtag, the more targeted your audience will be. And a more targeted audience generally means better engagement, right?
Oh, exactly. That's the whole purpose that Facebook was put together, was to connect people. Now they've gone through a bunch of different iterations over time and generally improved along the way. But you got to be known before you're needed.
You got that right, Richard. And and again, across all social media, these are communication tools. So we need to find effective ways to communicate to reach that audience. So if you, as you just said, if you don't have your own business hashtag, you need to find 1 or 2 existing ones that really fit your message. It doesn't have to be one that you make up. In fact, as I shared in the beginning when we started today, that I had a client want to know, I want to own my hashtag. I don't want anybody else to use it. Well, guess what? You want others to use it. Why?
You're going to show up in their searches.
Yes, you're going to be seen by more people.
If you have it and 10 other people have it, but you're, say, in the state of Florida and they're scattered out over the rest of the country, who do you think in Florida they're going to go to? Because they're going to go look at it. This person's in my general locality. All right, this is the person I want to work with.